to how old the earth is? So let's go on. Let's review. First off, what is it called? Where Morgan put his own people on the board of directors. Like, put his own people. What do we call those? His own people on the board of directors of different competitors to avoid the risk. Interlocking directors. What was it called? Where one corporation owns another corporation. Holding company. What state did it first?
New Jersey.
Beautiful New Jersey. And let's see what else. Oh, went through a lot about, okay, what did they start calling corporations because of the power they would accumulate?
Oligopoly.
The beast. What an oligopoly mean? A market controlled by what? Yeah, and it operates very much like a what? Yeah, so it operates like a monopoly. The United States today, almost every market's an oligopoly. Let me rephrase that. Every major market's an oligopoly. So they all operate like monopolies. Some obviously more than others. I think the food one is just so startling because we tend to eat food. And so that's where we had, the kind of control of business and this massive inequality of wealth that will start. I showed you that in 1900 and I showed you today. And also, what do they call these new entrepreneurs who would be ruthless in their accumulation of market control and wealth?
Robert.
Yeah, those are the robber barons. Are they different than the big business leaders today? No, it's the same. They have different suits, not as full facial hair today. But what? Who wrote the books? I mentioned it just a few minutes ago. Who wrote the books? Rags to Riches.
Horatio Alger.
Yeah, and these are books that if you didn't become rich, basically it's telling you, if you didn't make it, whose fault was it?
Your own.
That's your own. So the power of the individual, and that's a lot of the old West stuff, would be the going into the 20th century, the cowboy riding the plains alone, conquering the West.
What wasn't the main focus that you would find some rich guy who would help you out?
Yeah. Every time, all the Horatio Alger story was you had to be plucky and find a rich guy. And there's always men. There's always boys and then men who would do it. All right, so let's get to how old the earth is. How old is the earth? Well, if you look at the Bible, we're talking about a Christian Europe, for example. And what we're doing here, because that's where the Industrial Revolution began. Other people like the Venerable Bede, I know you're wondering when we get to the Venerable Bede, and others said that, like Isaac Newton believed this too, the earth was, created somewhere around 4,400 BC. No, wait a minute. 4,400 BC, they kind of figured out going back through all the begats and all this stuff in the Bible of the Old Testament. And then something amazing happened in the Industrial Revolution. They'd been finding stuff before, but never at such a grand scale, combined with the globalization after Columbus. So they're getting all this information around the world. They first off discovered that there were life species all over. By the way, a life species all over, but they were different. And why were they in some areas? And they also discovered something else that blew them away. First off, why were these different traits of animals that were so close to each other? Being like, for example, I like birds. Why are there 70 different warblers, the flycatchers? Why? And so those little things blew them away. But the other big one was even more important. They are mining more than ever before. This is coal mine in France. More than ever before. Also for ore, but the big thing is coal. As they dig deeper, what are they finding?
Fossils.
Fossils. What is fossils? They started finding fossils. And these fossils, they couldn't believe it. First off, they're stone. And how could they be stone? How could both turn to stone? The time, they already think the time must be immense. And many of the animals we're finding, they're not around. Remember I told you Lewis and Clark, when they went across the West, they were hoping to find the first of those, what we call dinosaurs. Because they were just finding this, they must be somewhere. So why not in Wyoming? Let's say it's up going. But here's a coal mine too. This is a peat field in France. So this is basically, this is more like strip mining, but they started, kind of digging down in peat. Peat, little layer of moss and soil. Every year a layer of peat forms. Get that point on top of another. As it presses down, coal. Just there's coal. It must be the way it was created. But every layer they knew was a year. So think about every layer. They started digging down. they started counting the layers. This is a spot in southern France. This is near where it is. They started counting down the layers. Soon they stopped counting at 10 million. Oh, maybe you can do the math, greater than, but 10 million is greater than 4,400 BC. Meaning the world might be immeasurably old, and it was blowing their mind. And this was all over the world via the 1790s going into the teens, the 20s, and the 30s of the 19th century. It's just blowing their mind. And the thing is, this is also a really big impact on their faith. Every religion has a creation story, and this blew it out of the water. Just blew it out of the water. So this was not a group of people like sitting in ivory towers pondering life came up with this. This was observation that was, for some of them, a real test of their faith and belief system. But still, the world was immeasurably old. Why? And they're also realizing, for obvious reasons, if we understand this, that's a greater impact of wealth and power. So, how old is the Earth? Oh, one more thing, all the canals they built. Same thing, finding fossils. Same thing. But then there's something else. Mount Vesuvius in Italy. Beautiful Mount Vesuvius, just south of Naples. You're to Pompeii. Pompeii was a city covered by the ash. Well, an almost perfectly preserved, cool place. It actually erupted. Did I tell you this yesterday?
No.
So the Allies in World War II, British, American, Canadian, French, landed here in 1943. Right here, place called Salerno. Vesuvius is right about it. Massive fighting, huge battle, 1943. And then the volcano erupted during the middle of the action. They had this massive eruption that went on for 6 months, spewing ash right in the middle of the Allied invasion of Italy. These are American B-25 bombers flying over. I just find that amazing. But in here, you can see a couple of these little bumps here. These are fissures, and it's all granite. Granite from volcanic rock. And they form these fissures where steam comes out. And the amazing thing about these fissures is the granite has to be just unbelievably old. Make sense? But underneath the granite at a volcano that's 10,000 feet, it's dominating. They found this. What are those? Shells. Plants. Very similar to the ones they found in the Mediterranean. That means that these are over seashells. How old was that? That must mean that there was an ocean there before the volcano. How old is this place? This was the observation of things they were finding. Now you might be wondering, why didn't they notice this before? Well, they didn't really think about it before. And this was the era, like literally the beginning of this era. This romantic era, they started mountain climbing. Mountain climbing became a thing. And they started paying attention. So, how old's the Earth? So people started looking into this. And there's all around the world, they see these different species, fossils, various things, and studying about how old the Earth is. And now there's a competition. Who could come up with the theory that would encompass this first? And there's a race. And we're going into the 1850s, and there's a race to get this done. I should add, Greek philosophers were talking about this term called evolution back about 400 or 500 BC. So it's not new. Look at first. Who did it? In fact, he planned on a 12-volume set, but quickly wrote a summary because he wanted to be first. Who was it? Darwin. Yeah. Charles Darwin, 1859, The Origin of Species. Now, I want to be very clear about this one more time. This was by observation and shock. Absolute shock when they found this. It blew them away. So there's Darwin when he wrote it. There'll be another picture of Darwin I'll show in a second. And then he laid out through his observation of years of observation. He sailed around the world on a ship called the Beagle. So he had seen many different things, like, for example, the Galapagos Islands blew him away. Great story, the whole thing. But we can't always. Now, I know what you're wondering. I know this is important. Historically, because of the event here would revolutionize science back, give us biology. I mean, biological science really was created by this argument. But why is it so important? It directly affects our history to this day. Because when he wrote this, he's said basically, even though people talk evolution, a more proper term is natural selection. Certain species will develop traits to adapt to different environmental changes. So they adapt traits. And if they have that trait, they survive. If they don't have that trait, they die off. And they're little, they can be minuscule traits, large scale traits. And the big one were birds and beetles. The traits in all the beetles you found. But there's more than that. So it's not so much that something is strong and can take over and dominate. It's what could survive. The dinosaurs died off, but the shrews survived. Little tiny mice about that big. They survived because they had traits that could adapt. Humans had amazing traits that could adapt. And that's how come humans survived. But well, Homo sapiens, sapiens. That's what we get. Sapiens, sapiens. And I should add, Homo sapiens, sapiens are shockingly cruel, and they killed off all the other our cousins. Because Homo sapiens, sapiens are cruel. Either they killed them off or bred with them. They killed them off. Neanderthals. So, natural selection. He did not mess with human beings on purpose because he knew this would create quite a religious shock. This is a real fundamentals of faith, but it's not evolution. Or it's not evolution as in we're all evolving into a different species. No, it's natural selection of some species survive, some don't, other traits survive, some don't. And it's more like we're all cousins. So here, there's gonna be a lot of tree of life. And here's the branch of the primate tree, and we're all cousins. So you have some branch off to like the New World monkeys, the beautiful capuchin monkey, squirrel monkeys. Here's the gibbon. We have this lemur, and then here is all cousins. We're all related: orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and of course humans. We're cousins, but chimpanzees are not evolving into human beings. If there's any kind of natural selection, they're going to devolve into a different trait of chimpanzee. A slug is not evolving into a human being. If they have any changes, they'll evolve into a different slug. But that was what he said. This is, of course, going to be misconstrued. In 1871, he would jump into this concept of evolution by writing The Descent of Man, where he added how man happened. And you should understand, fossils are remarkable that we found any. So one of the arguments against natural selection are holes in the fossil record. Do you know how amazing it is to find any fossils, let alone enough to give you a full picture of development of any animal? I should have Montana. We're in a perfect place for fossils, if you know. And if you go to Glendive in eastern Montana, that's probably in that area, the greatest area for dinosaurs in the United States. And of course, you get to go to Glendive. It's been to Glendive. Don't tell everybody. They were our big rival when I was in high school in sports. So, but the big thing is we have common ancestors. And that's the picture. If you've ever seen a picture of Darwin, he grew the big beard out. Darwin. Now, we call it Darwinism then sometimes, but he did not invent it. He raised and got it first, and so he did it. He was not alone. There were many doing it. In fact, there were 3 other books just about published, and Darwin beat him. So Darwin. So this is a picture, and this is brand new. I found this and it made me laugh because this is from this new science curriculum. And where the heck is this? And it's implying that. And it says I know it's hard to read, but human development from protocells to people. So cells and go to slugs, and the scale down all the way up to humans, and then whatever this bald thing is that we'll adopt to down the road or evolve to. But it's implying it does. If you just look at it, it's implying that this flatworm is evolving to a human being. It's implying that. Now, that's obviously not true. That was never in Darwin, but it's implying that. And this might shock you. Most people have never read On the Origin of Species. I've only read an abridged version of it. It's kind of hard reading stuff from 1859, especially when I'm not science. Another book was written in the 1850s or 1950s, and it was called The March of Progress. And it put this chart up of human evolution. And this can have more influence than you can imagine. I bet all of you have seen that. Haven't you seen this? Implying chimps are evolving up to humans. No, that's not what happened. But this is going to lead to a lot of misconceptions. Now, you might be wondering, why am I telling you this? But what that means is, if there is this idea that lower life forms, inferior life forms, someday are evolving up to the superior life form, us. You notice I use those words, inferior and superior. That means if you don't really understand what natural selection was, you might believe that there is now scientific evidence that there is a hierarchy of species. There is a hierarchy of species evolving from amoebas to human beings. And this is a cartoon not from Darwin's Ascent of Man, but would be, hey, he must mean, whatever fish this is, evolving down to a human being. And this would be then, no, humans are special. We didn't evolve from some monkey. I'm not evolving from a monkey became a very famous saying. Thus, you see Darwin, that was a really common cartoon in the 1870s, 1880s. So, hierarchy of species. So we're better than, we are superior. Which, yes, most people would have believed that if you asked them, but now we have scientific evidence that there's a hierarchy of life, bottom all the way up. If there's a hierarchy of species, that must mean hierarchy of species is normal, natural, scientific evidence of this. Hierarchy of species, that means there's a hierarchy of humans, of human beings. That seems to prove it. Now, remember, we've already had this attitude. Remember the positive good theory of slavery. But now we have scientific evidence, scientific proof. Now, is this what the science says? No. But we don't care. Right? We're the best because we're on top. Yes, I use another picture on this, but this one gets to the big things. If there is a hierarchy of humans, is there a hierarchy of class? Are rich people better than poor? By color of skin. And after the 17th century, it's lighter color, superior. Or by sex. Male, female. Yeah, we now have scientific evidence. All those things we've been saying, the society, the rulers of society, that certain people are on top, that's natural. Now we have proof. Now we have proof. And to do anything different is unnatural, going against science. It is proof. That is why I went through that whole thing. This is a big shift in thinking. Because now we can say I have scientific evidence that I'm better than you. And it's natural that I'm on top. And why should I ever allow you the same rights I have? Or whatever it might be. So, what philosophy will come out of this? And it's the most dominant philosophy in the world today. Charles Darwin hated it with a passion that's hard to put into terms. It's the most dominant philosophy in the world today. Oh, I should show a cartoon. The evolution of a stick. I thought that was kind of funny, so I enjoyed it immensely. If you don't get it, I love it. I love the top. And then, have you ever seen these little things? Yes, every friend of mine who loves hockey has a shirt or something with that. And then, of course, the evolution up to finally standing up straight and not hunched over a computer. I thought that's pretty clever too. Let's jump right to this. Social Darwinism. And it is by far the dominant philosophy. And the reason it's such an important philosophy is, and just add this, because it claims that it's backed by science. It's not just we are going to say we're on top because we want to be on top and want to keep all the wealth. No. We have science on our side. Herbert Spencer was a son of an aristocrat in England, lived in the country estate, old money. So actually, they were kind of losing money. They didn't make as much money as possible. They lived a very sheltered life, very wealthy. And he was questioned, valid questions. Why am I on top? Why do I have this nice life? Why did I never have to go into these new factories in Manchester, nearby Manchester, and work in absolute misery and live in an 8x8 hovel and die young? My children have a worse life. In fact, in Britain, everyone's getting shorter because the working class had so little pay, their diet was getting worse. They would come back up again. But why is this happening? Why me? Now, of course, because I'm better. And he read Darwin. And Darwin's like, got it. This is the reason why I'm better. Science. I'm on top. I'm on top because of natural selection. I'm on top because it's natural. I'm supposed to be. So he's pondering this. A couple trips into Manchester, but basically, though, he's just doing it in his study. It's not Darwin going out and seeing the world and experimenting the scientific method. He is just inductively thinking about this. So he came up with this natural selection. What natural selection really is survival of the fittest. Have you ever heard that term before? That's not Darwin. That's Spencer. Darwin does not believe in survival of the fittest. Darwin hated that term because it's not at all what he said. So, survival of the fittest. And who are the fittest? Just like the predator is the fittest on the plains. So just like a leopard killing a gazelle, the rich must be superior to them. And that is not natural. It's the same argument. In the cutthroat world of competition, it's no different than Africa or in the sea or wherever with animals. It's all the same. We have a hierarchy that's natural, and that's the way it's supposed to be. Now, trust me, the people on top have always said there's a hierarchy, but now we have scientific proof. And therefore, classes are natural. There's got to be someone on top. Remember, said there's always someone on top and other people to work for. Now we know it's true. I am on top, Spencer would think, because it's natural and I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be in the factory because I was born superior with superior traits. And then why are people poor? Why are people working class? Why do people fail? Why do people starve? There must be something wrong with them. The poor must be somehow corrupt. And we'll go more and more to morals. They don't work hard. They're poor because if they give them money, they'll drink it away. They're lazy. They won't work unless they're forced to. Remember, that's what Calhoun said about slaves. They won't work unless you make them. People are lazy and worthless. You have to make him the work. Now, not him. He works very hard. Of course, he doesn't eat because he's naturally on top, but they work very hard. You have to be made to work. And I'm pointing at you because we're talking about the vast majority of people. Those of us on top have a podium. We're naturally here. And it's their fault. This is really important. It's their fault. It's their fault. Now, what about all these corrupt practices that the robber barons were doing? No, that's natural. They're supposed to do whatever it takes to get rich. Doesn't a predator ambush its prey? What's the difference? They're supposed to be on top. So Spencer, going right after the Civil War, would write 2 different books and a couple pamphlets, and they would be a hit amongst what kind of people? Now he's from England, but what kind of people in the United States? Those new robber barons. And actually, Robert Fisk, Jay Gould, Carnegie, and a couple others paid for him to come to the United States. They loved him so much, they brought him to the United States in 1869. Like, Spencer, he's taught us the way. He's amazing. We don't have to feel guilty about what we do anymore. And they brought him to New York City, and they met him at the dock, and they took him to the 5 Points area of New York City. It's also called the Bowery, because it's a street called the Bowery. Has anyone ever heard of that? Well, in Manhattan Island, there's a spot there. It's kind of rugged. There's kind of rocky outcrops all over. And the one area is kind of a basin, so all the water runs in there, so it's a swamp. So that was the last area that they built up, in a swamp. Gee, I wonder what kind of people are going to live there. You know, it's just going to be these ramshackle apartments with people packed in. It's the poorest area of town. That's where it's always going to be known for like crime because they have nothing. And there's thousands of orphans running the streets because they've been abandoned by their families. There's bodies, horses, and animals all over. Think about 1 million horses in New York City in 1869. What do you do with all the manure? No, they got to pick it up. They would pick it up on the rich areas and dump it in the Bowery. They would get into their water, and there's hell on it. And they took him there to say, this is basically what they're saying. Look how morally corrupt these people are as they live like this. Now they live like this because they have nothing. But they said they're morally corrupt. Look at them. Look at them. See, I told you, we're better. Now Spencer actually looked at this and said, you're treating human beings like this? I didn't mean that you can treat people like that. I just meant some people are going to be on top and run the factories and others won't. And what did the attitude of these robber barons when Spencer said that? Huh? Like, shut up. And they sent him back to Britain. They were so mad. How dare you make us feel guilty? We want to feel good. And so they found their man, an American. Jumping right to here. William Graham Sumner. When we did social Darwinism, Spencer coined it, but Sumner would be the patron saint. And he had no qualms, no empathy. His most famous book would be written right after the turn of the century called Folkways. I have not read Folkways. I'm going to read excerpts of it. And it is very much hierarchy based. So let's look at what he means. Natural selection on the plains of the Serengeti are the same as natural selection in the market. In the marketplace of buying, selling goods, employers, employees, the stronger individual is the one that will succeed in the marketplace, aka the wealthy. They are stronger, they are better, they're superior, they're morally fit because they are rich. And that implies their kids are going to be rich. They're supposed to be on top. And those who aren't, there's something wrong with them. They're morally corrupt, they're inferior, they'll drink it away, they're lazy, you name it. The big one was lazy and drink it away. That's what they kept saying. And therefore, a social hierarchy is natural. It's in society. And if it's a social hierarchy, that means there's supposed to be people on the bottom. And why would you ever change that? Why would you ever change that? And what about race? Well, clearly, therefore, there are certain, okay, with all societies, there are going to be people on top. But naturally, then, if natural selection exists, there are reasons why Northern Europeans are richer. The Industrial Revolution began there because they're superior. And what common denominator? Lighter colored skin. And therefore, darker colored skin must be superior, and very much confirming the positive good theory. Very much confirming. It's no coincidence that the biggest justification to take colonies in the last part of the 19th century, they colonized all of Africa and much of Asia. They're inferior. And we're going to civilize them because they are so backwards in their own world. Social Darwinism. Now let's be clear, they just did it to get money, but that's what they try to justify. Does that sound like slavery? And the same thing with sex and or gender. Gender is constructed by humans, sex biological, but the point is there's one on top, and that's natural. So there's hierarchies. So we're going to have men and women below. So even if you're a man and you're at the bottom of the social hierarchy, you have somebody you're ahead of. That's what. So that's always has that. And that's how hierarchies function. If you accept it, yeah, there's somebody on top, but I better have somebody to dominate. Oh yeah, I do. In fact, the term they would use going into the 20th century is everybody wants to be able to put their foot on somebody else's throat. It's me, I really want to do it to somebody else. And that you can't take it, it comes out. So, what's the role of government then? Because this is the big element. This is the big element. The big element. Okay, we can talk about social Darwinism. Be like, oh yeah, some people think they're better than others. Whatever, right? Right, whatever. Why it's important is how we interact and make policy decisions that affect all of us. This is why it's important. This is why I kept talking about in the development of corporations, how they want to make the rules. This is why it's important. This is how the rules are made on how we survive comes from government. So this is what it says. Basically this, government intervention though is futile because what's happening is natural. There's inequalities of wealth because that's natural. And especially trying to intervene with class or issues of class and help the poor. That'd be a disaster. Wealthy people are supposed to be on top. If you disrupt that by demanding, let's say, higher wages and better working conditions for people, that will disrupt the natural order and throw the entire civilization out of whack. If you help the poor, you're destroying society. And not just that, you'll reinforce those negative traits. So why are the poor poor? Because they're lazy, they drink, they're dishonest, they're corrupt. And if you give them money, what will they do? They'll pass it on. And if you give them money, won't you encourage them to breed more? So those terms on purpose. They'll have more. And they'll spread those traits. Natural selection, those traits go away. But if we show compassion to them, oh, they'll have more children. Here's similar things go on and on. Remember what I told you, this is the most dominant philosophy in the world today. And who should we help if we help anybody with government? It must go to the successful, those who are supposed to help. You know what we should do as government? Get the rich richer. If the rich get richer, it will do a couple of different things. They know what to do, the country will become more prosperous, and those negative traits will be destroyed. We better not allow the poor and the successful to breed. What if they mix? Those poor traits are spread to those traits that made people poor, spread to the traits that the people who are rich. We'll mix the blood. That's what they would say. Does this sound familiar? Anyone thinking of something in the 20th century? I don't know. I can't really. I'm just kind of pondering. If you read ahead in history, do you know what we're referring to here? And it all started in the United States. And so, laissez-faire was what social Darwinists want. Don't mess with competition and help the rich. And this would be the essence of conservative economics. In fact, today you can see it. People who are more conservative are generally more social Darwinist. Yeah. And whatever. And we all have elements of that. You know, we all have elements of like, look how great I'm doing. And you're not doing as well, boy, I must be better. Some people work very hard to not think that way, but people do all the time because we want to make ourselves look better. And what a great way to say I'm rich because I'm better. So here's this is Robert Fisk and trying to corner the gold market and government and kind of the web he's weaving around it. And we're supposed to say this government controlled by the wealthy. That's natural. That's natural. So what comes out of this? Yes, the science of eugenics would be developed out of social Darwinism in the 1890s and would soon sweep the United States in the 1920s. Selective breeding. We can't have mixing of class, of poor and rich, of race. We can't have people who they would go through people who have disabilities. Can't mix them with people who not, because that degenerate trade will pass on. And so, here some people are born to be a burden on the rest. That's the poor. They're a burden. Do you want them to breed more? This is a really interesting map. So see the numbers on that map? Can you see the numbers? The numbers are the most pure, superior Nordic race. The higher the number, the most pure. Gee, I wonder who made this. Even though it's from the United States, British. They must have British descent. So 94, 96, 98. See how I'll do that? But as you get further south, the numbers drop. So where you get, 60, 70, and so on. And once it gets below 70, you get below 70, you breed with this, those negative traits will be passed on. Eugenics would start here. What philosophy political system are a lot of you thinking of right now? Yeah, fascism and Nazis. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. One more thing. This is 1870s, 1880s, 1890s. There was a new empire, new country created in 1871. New country created. The country, 1871. And they had all these different little principalities and kingdoms merged together. And they wanted to try to create a common national identity, nationalism. They said, let's find something about ourselves that makes us special. So they made up this whole mythology. They took some mythology from Norwegian mythology, a few other mythologies, kind of lumped it all together and made up this stuff to say, we are great because we're this. They even made up a name for the people who lived there. They took a name of people who came from Central Asia and said, we're them. And that's our superior. What new country? The German Empire. So if you think about Nazi ideology, it's pre-Nazi. They just adopted social Darwinism to this mythology about Germany. By the way, Aryans, no, it was actually a country of Aryans. Don't anybody know the country of Aryans? I'll see this again, see if we know. Anyone know? Have you heard of Iran? That means Aryan. So Aryan was made up, the whole thing about blonde hair, blue-eyed Germans, made up by German mythology, but social Darwinism. So Andrew Carnegie, he loved this philosophy, but he had a problem. He wanted to go to heaven. He immigrated from Scotland. He was a Presbyterian, very much into predestination. And he loved social Darwinism because he's without guilt. That led to him without guilt. I don't know why I wrote it like that. But he also loved it, but he still didn't want to read. So he's accumulating money. Yeah, he's supposed to be on top, but he wants to be a good person. He really thought about heaven and thought about sin. And he thought about the New Testament, where it's very much a sin to accumulate great amount of wealth in the New Testament. And it really bothered him because he still wanted a lot of money. So social Darwinism kind of helped because it's natural, but he still wanted to go to heaven. So he decided this: wealth is good. Now, this is not a new philosophy. This goes back to, you can see it in Catholic Europe. In fact, let me rephrase that, Christian Europe before the 1500s. But wealth means God's love. The richer you are, the more love God gives you. So in the Protestant faith, evangelical Protestantism today, there's something called the prosperity doctrine. And it's really dominant in evangelical Protestant religion today. Where basically, how do you show that you are you have had salvation? It's very Christian, so salvation from the Christian God. Wealth. Really, really dominant in the United States today. But it comes kind of from here. So, got all this money. But how do I prove I'm good? I want to be good with this money. Well, I'm wealthy because I'm better. I know best. So I have this wealth and power. I should decide where it goes. I should give it back, but then I will decide because I'm on top and I'm superior. It's very much like this. So what do we call directed charity from one individual, one small group? It's a term all of you have heard, but it literally means directed charity. So he's not giving money to groups and say, do what you think's best. You're in the trenches, do. No, it's I will decide. And it's called philanthropy. He didn't have to give anything. He's going to have hundreds of millions. Heck, he'll be a billionaire when he sells his steel company to JP Morgan. But he's going to direct it. I will decide. And I know what's best. So he talked about giving free college education to his native Scotland. He never did, but he talked about it. So that's what this cartoon's about. I mean, he had so much money. And the big thing is, if you just give money to people, they'll drink it away. So using his quote, there can be no direct aid for the poor. And his quote was, slothful makes me lazy, drunken for the unworthy. Because if I give it to them, they will waste it. I can't emphasize that enough. Poor and working class people, they believe, were lazy and drunk. And their kids were the same. They got to be taught to work. So what did he give money to? He's not going to give money. He wants to help those people. They're eating, unlike a lot of philanthropy, you actually wants to help the poor. But how do you help them? You give them money, they'll drink it away. So let's help them improve themselves. Yeah. concert halls, opera houses, but the big one is right down libraries. He is gonna spend hundreds of millions of dollars to this day for libraries. Libraries. So the seed money for the Lewis and Clark County Library, a Carnegie endowment. The Miles City Library when I was a kid, I love library. And it used to be called the Miles City Carnegie Library. There's still Carnegie libraries. He didn't have to give anything, so let's be clear. That is pretty amazing, but he's not gonna give it. He's not gonna give higher wages to his workers. He'll build them an opera house. So they could learn their way out. Because we all know you give money to them. What will happen? Just drink it away. That's what I can't get back. I was gonna get back to the drink it away. So that's what they would say. Today, they would say they would use drugs. Yeah, they would just buy drugs. But same effect. So that is the gospel of wealth. Bill Gates is a classic example of philanthropy. He has given hundreds of millions of dollars. Some you could argue it's good, and some has been an absolute disaster by his own admittance. His meddling in the public education system has been training. Have you ever heard of something called Common Core? Which the tentacles are still there and is pretty much acknowledged to have been a disaster. That was all him. Just all him. Promising hundreds of millions of dollars and convincing the Obama administration to adopt it, even though they didn't even know what it was. They literally were just making it up. Because he thought teachers are lazy, students are lazy, they got to be tested. No? Did it work? Well, we're seeing the effects of it right now. Anybody know what reading and math scores are doing? Yeah. But he's also done things like provided something very simple like nets for beds in Africa to avoid mosquitoes because of malaria. I mean, but the point is, he doesn't trust anybody else with money. I know that. So, a term for this today, you might heard the term long-termism or effective altruism. Altruism is like caring or giving to other people. And this is the idea of a lot of very wealthy people are saying today. Okay, I'm going to start planning for today. Okay, today there are poor people, I can't worry about that. But tomorrow we'll make it better. But this is almost completely very wealthy people. That's Elon Musk's obsession with going to Mars. This society's broken down, it's done. But the long-term goal, take a cadre of people, superior people, and go to Mars. And he's very clear about that. It's called natalist. That's why he has what? Like 20 kids. Because he's trying to spread his superior genes. Yeah, I'm not making that up. He's very open about that. And if they don't match his superior ideas, they just kind of get it. I'm not making that up either. Some of you might know. Yeah. So let's get to the next thing. Are there opposing views? As personified by this dog with a cigar, a pipe, yes. And you know, that's just a working class dog. That's a clay working class pipe, right? I can respect that dog. Hey, let's not make a big deal about it. Everybody smoked. When I was born, it was common to tell pregnant women to smoke because it would ease your morning sickness and come up with a healthier baby. Right? And we all know that's true. That's science. So, right now, last thing for today, socialism. We've already talked about socialism once before. But socialism would really gain its footing after the 1870s as a foil to social Darwinism. And their point is classes aren't natural. We have massive brains and we can decide our own fate. So let me add something. Where did Charles Darwin fit on this? Would he be closer to this or closer to social Darwinism? He was a socialist. Charles Darwin was a socialist. And he thought human beings should not treat each other this way. We can all enjoy the prosperity of its new capitalist system. By the way, there are all kinds of different socialists. A communist is a socialist. There's other socialists. And they hate each other. Quiz on Monday, 12 questions. And I'm going to put it in numerical order just for you.
Put it in alphabetical.
Good. I've never been in it, but I've walked by
I
it.
have like a couple, let me see if I can find pictures from when I was there.
when we did a walk here in New York City, you know that thing about New York City, you know how there's so much to see, but we walked by it on the tour. Goodbye, everybody.
This is from the stage.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, and that's the. Okay,
That's really cool. That's really,
it fits like a couple thousand people.
I mean, any,
Broadway Arts Tour, we got to meet heads.
Is it really? Easy, right.
goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, they have this, the people who work there, they have this story about how there's this one dude where he always sat in, and they say that like sometimes it's still haunted, like you go over there, it feels weird or whatever. All kinds of little ghost stories about the place.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I think that's pretty common in every place, but that's kind of
Yeah,
cool.
especially, oh yeah, it was really cool.
That's awesome.
We got like tour, and they have like these two stairwells. One of them has, I think I have some pictures from there where they have a bunch of pictures, a bunch of famous people have been there. They have like there was Meatloaf, they have a signed guitar. Oh, here it is. That's Meatloaf's guitar sign.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry. They're good. Yeah, like they have pictures.
that's really cool. That's, well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
All righty then. What am I doing? I sat down for a reason.